Good morning, everyone, and thanks once again for joining us for another Sunday pastoral message. I'd like to begin this morning with this chalice lighting by Katie Gelfand. We light our chalice as a symbol of gratitude as we celebrate the abundance of our lives together. In this sanctuary, we harvest bushels of strength for one another and offer our crop with the hands of compassion and generosity. In the authentic and gentle manner of our connections, we cultivate a simple sweetness to brighten our spirits. May we be grateful for the ways we nourish and uplift each other, for it is in the sharing of this hallowed time together that sustains us. So, most of you know that I love to bake. Well, more accurately, I love to eat baked goods, and one of the best ways of doing that for me is to actually bake it myself. So, I'll let the first statement stand. I love to bake. I have to tell you, during this time of home stay, I've baked more than I have in a very, very long time. We've had pies and cakes and soda bread and biscuits and naan and cornbread and muffins and homemade pizza crusts and banana bread. And while I recognize that they're not technically baked, more pancakes and waffles than we've had in a very, very long time. I may have become a little bit obsessed. And I have to admit, I have been doing a bit of hoarding. I'm not proud of it, but there it is. While others were out hoarding toilet paper, I was sending people off to buy flour. Periodically, and maybe a little bit obsessively, every few days I would go to my stash of flour and reassure myself that it was still there, as if some malevolent demon would be coming and grabbing my flour off the shelf. Just the other day, I found a bag of flour that I'd forgotten about. I was very happy about that. Now, you may have this vision of me like a modern-day version of the Golem from the Ring trilogy, where I, go into my stash and go, "My precious." And I hope you'll put that out of your mind, because it's not completely accurate. In any case, though, I do have to admit that I am not immune to the scarcity mentality. I certainly never pretended to be above such human vices, but I'm very much aware of the fact that I am. I suppose everybody is susceptible to it to one extent or another. The French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre, in his book The Critique of the Dialectic Reason, said that scarcity is the overriding rule of life. Reflecting on the philosophy of Marx and Aristotle and Plato and Kant, he concludes that the fundamental issue of human existence is scarcity when you examine it from a purely physical realm. Honestly, that seems a little bleak to me. But then I don't pretend to view things on a purely physical realm anyway. Rather, as you use, we tend to be more positive about life. We speak of the interconnected web of all existence, which would automatically require at least some degree of cooperation and generosity. In fact, social science, psychology, theology, and other disciplines are very clear that generosity is in fact inherent in our lives. A white paper prepared for the John Templeton Foundation by the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley, that was prepared by Dr. Summer Allen, PhD, states, "Though researchers debate the extent to which humans are innately generous, a great deal of research strongly suggests that generosity has deep evolutionary, biological, and developmental roots in humans. As a whole, this research suggests that far from being frivolous or superfluous, Human generosity is deeply embedded in human behavior and plays a vital role in our personal well-being and survival as a species. Of course, real scarcity does come into play in so many lives. I think this is particularly true now in the face of so much uncertainty. Now more than ever at this time, there's a natural fear for people to be concerned about all sorts of things. Who knows what tomorrow may bring? Will there be enough? My rationale about the flour clearly is grounded in not knowing if stores would close. I figured if I have flour, salt, water, and yeast, my family will at least not starve. So perhaps it wasn't completely unreasonable. And real scarcity does in fact occur. There are over 7 billion people on this planet. Climate change has made large parts of our planet uninhabitable. Millions of children starve each year. Wars and famine go hand in hand. Wealth inequality that leaves some with unimaginable wealth while others starve. Yes, there is real scarcity. But there is a difference, I think, between real scarcity and scarcity mentality. We must act against real scarcity, certainly. That's a justice issue. As UUs, we are committed to making the world a more fair and just place. But that has to be done externally. But scarcity mentality is about perception rather than reality. We should act against that too, but in a different way, I think. Stephen R. Covey, the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, writes, "People with a certain mentality tend to see everything in terms of win or lose. There is only so much, and if someone else has it, that means there will be less for me." For many of us who are listening today, it is that scarcity mentality at play here, rather than actual scarcity. Scarcity mentality is internal work. It's combating the view that there is not enough, that I am not enough. And if I had more possessions, more money, more material wealth, more flour, whatever, I would be secure. I would be happy and safe. It's internal work, and that's the work of our own spirituality. Author Brené Brown writes, "I think abundance and scarcity are two sides of the same coin. The opposite of never enough isn't abundance or more than you could ever imagine. The opposite of scarcity is enough, or what I call wholeheartedness, vulnerability and worthiness, facing uncertainty, exposure, and emotional risks, and knowing that I am enough." And isn't that what we're all facing right now? Vulnerability, uncertainty, exposure, risk? We are, for some of us, on an unbelievable and surprising scale. I admit, it's easy to get spooked into the mindset of we don't have enough. But having that feeling of I am enough will go a long way, I think, toward feeling like I have enough. And in my experience, people with an overall generous spirit, which does not depend, by the way, on physical possessions, seem to lead a life of real fulfillment and happiness. I've seen and experienced beautiful souls who, though they had very little material wealth, were generous and open-hearted. And I'm seeing a lot of generosity even now. I see many of you making masks, mowing the neighbor's lawn, and fulfilling your pledges to this institution, even though we're not holding in-person services. But how do we cultivate that wholeheartedness, that generosity of spirit? Browsing the internet and all the self-help books on my bookshelf, led to tons of ideas. Articles with names like Generosity of Spirit, It's the Heart of Great Leaders, and 4 Helpful Tips for Cultivating Generous Giving, and one of my favorites, How to Cultivate a Generosity Culture When All You Want to Do is Take a Nap. I liked that one a lot. Many were, of course, Christian-based and used the Bible examples of the widow's mite or the loaves and the fishes. And most were, at very least, theologically based, which of course is not surprising because it is, in fact, a theological question. They focused on gratitude for what you have and finding a cause you believe in, supporting it with your time, talent, and treasure. They often urge spending in the company of others who share similar values and attitudes about generosity. Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? It's what we preach here at UUFS all the time. And all of them were clear. Generosity of spirit requires intentionality. One passage that I liked particularly stated it this way: generosity rarely happens by chance. Instead, it is an intentional decision that we make in our lives. But it does not need to be as difficult as many people think. Sometimes, starting with the simple steps is the best way that we can, let me try that again. Sometimes starting with the simple steps is the best step that we can take. So I urge you to take one simple step. Find one small thing, one thing that you can do. Just one thing to cultivate within ourselves a wholeheartedness, a generosity of spirit. And so, my friends, my blessing for you this day is this. In the midst of our anxiety, may each of us know that we are enough. May we find the strength to be fearlessly generous, even when all we want to do is take a nap. Have a blessed week. Thank you for being with us today.